My hands were still trembling when they wheeled me into that damn hospital room. Not from the surgery. Not from the pain. But from the sound of the door slamming shut behind my own flesh and blood. My son. My daughter-in-law. The two of them walking away like I was some burnt casserole they left in the oven too long. Not a word. Not a backward glance. I yelled after them, "You better pray you never end up like this. You better hope someone gives a damn when you're the one hooked up to machines." But they were gone before the words even hit the linoleum. Gone like the 25 years I gave up raising that ungrateful boy. Gone like the nights I stayed up when he had fevers. The way his little fingers clung to my sweater when he couldn't sleep. All of it vanished in the click of that godforsaken hospital door. The nurse came in, said something soft and sweet like I was a charity case. I turned my face to the window. I didn't want comfort. I wanted fire. They left me alone. After surgery. No one to hold my hand. No one to bring soup. No familiar voice telling me I'd be okay. Just the 4 beep 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 and the taste of metal in my mouth. But you know what tasted worse? The silence. Not a single call. No messages. No damn flowers. My so-called family off carving turkeys, pouring wine, taking family pictures while I stared at the ceiling tiles, counting the cracks like a prisoner counting the days. I had become invisible. And here's the kicker. It wasn't just absence. It was betrayal. Because I begged them to wait one more day for the surgery so it wouldn't fall on Thanksgiving. I didn't want to ruin the holiday. I didn't want to cause a scene. And my son, that snake in a suit, said, "Of course, Mom, whatever you need." But his wife, with that tight-lipped smile and eyes like frosted glass, she said, "Actually, it might be better if we just get this over with." So she could get on with her plans. So I wouldn't inconvenience her charcuterie board. The doctor nodded along. They all nodded. And I, like the old fool I was, agreed. I shouldn't have. I should have listened to the voice inside me screaming this isn't right. You see, when you've lived as long as I have, you learn the smell of rot under perfume. And that woman, my daughter-in-law, reeked of it. Sweet on the outside, like a cinnamon roll with poison in the middle. But I said nothing. That day. Now I was boiling. Rage doesn't even begin to describe it. I wasn't sad. I wasn't hurt. I was scorched earth. My bones ached with fury more than they did from the damn operation. And it wasn't just about being left alone. No. It was years. Years of being dismissed. Rolled eyes. Snide comments. The way she told my grandson to call me Gran instead of Nana because it sounded less old. The way she'd replaced the photos on the wall with her side of the family. The way my son stopped calling me Mom and started calling me Ma, like I was a cow chewing hay in the background. They wanted to erase me. But I still had one thing they didn't count on. I had time. I had clarity. And I had a plan. They think I'm fragile. That's their biggest mistake. You sit in a chair long enough, wear enough blankets, and people assume your spine is made of cardboard. But mine's steel wrapped in skin. My world may look soft to outsiders, knit doilies, dusty teacups, and the faint smell of lavender, but underneath it, I've been building a fortress out of silence. My home sits on a little hill just off the edge of town, where the sidewalks crack and the neighbors wave but never pry. I've lived there nearly 50 years. The walls are lined with memories, real ones. My husband's old chair still faces the television, even though it's been empty a decade. My garden still grows tomatoes in the summer. I still keep my jewelry in the same cedar box, hidden under the floorboard beneath my dresser. The same one I used to tuck away birth certificates, family photos, and one very specific folder marked, "If they ever try me." That folder. I hadn't opened it in years. But after the hospital? Oh honey, that folder damn near opened itself. You need to understand something. My son Andrew wasn't always like this. There was a time he used to bring me dandelions from the yard, proud like he'd plucked stars from the sky. When he was 12 and his father died, I became everything. Mom, Dad, counselor, cook, banker. And I did it all. With blistered hands and a back that screamed by sundown. I taught him how to tie a tie. I gave up my dreams so he could have his. I even sold my engagement ring to help pay his first semester of law school. Then came Victoria. She walked into our lives like she owned the air around her. Pretty, yes. Polished, always. But kind? Only when someone was watching. She had a voice like sugar and eyes like glass knives. And when she slipped that ring on her finger, the one Andrew bought with my help, I felt the shift. Like a curtain falling over a window. Bit by bit, they stopped coming by. My birthday? We're traveling. Christmas? We're hosting with her family this year. Suddenly, I was a chore. A holiday obligation. A fragile shadow in the corner of their perfect life. Still, I let it go. Told myself this is what happens. Kids grow. Things change. But when I ended up in that hospital bed, cut open and drugged out, alone on Thanksgiving while they posted pictures online with smiling faces in cranberry sauce. That was no accident. That was a message. And I heard it loud and clear. You're not wanted. They didn't just forget me. They discarded me. Like I was a cracked plate or an expired coupon. And if you think that's where it ends, you don't know me at all. Because when I finally got home, 3 days later, bruised and stitched up, guess what I found? My fridge had been emptied. No groceries. No broth. Not even a single goddamn apple. They knew I couldn't drive yet. They knew I'd be weak. And still nothing. Not even my favorite mug was left in the sink. They'd been here. That woman Victoria had come by with her passive-aggressive potpourri and her fake smile, probably to tidy up. Except she'd taken things. Little things. My spare house key. The note I kept from my husband in my kitchen drawer. My ceramic bird that used to sit on the windowsill gone. She'd erased traces of me from my own home. That to me wasn't just disrespect. It was war. And let me be clear, I've survived worse. I've buried people I loved. I've worked 3 jobs to pay a mortgage. I've gone without so my child could eat. But I will not, I repeat, will not be quietly erased. They think I'm too old to do anything about it. They forgot who raised Andrew. They forgot who taught him strategy, how to lie convincingly, how to read people before they speak. They forgot the woman who could fix a broken pipe, unclog a drain, and file a tax appeal without blinking. They forgot I used to be a school secretary, and a damn good one, who ran the principal's office like a war room. And if you think I don't remember where I put every paper, every receipt, every detail about the last 20 years? Oh, you sweet summer fools. The real betrayal didn't happen in that hospital bed. It happened the morning after I got home. I was sitting at the kitchen table, my robe barely tied, sipping bland tea because the painkillers killed my taste buds, and that's when the doorbell rang. I thought maybe, just maybe, they'd come to check on me. But no, it was a courier. Some 20-something with chipped nail polish, and a look that said she hated her job. She handed me a large envelope. From Andrew and Victoria. Inside was a letter. Not handwritten. Not even addressed Mom. Just cold typeface on expensive paper. They were concerned about my ability to live alone post-surgery. Thought maybe it was time to consider assisted living. They'd found a wonderful facility just outside town. One with round-the-clock medical care, clean private rooms, and weekly shuttle service to church. As if that would sweeten the blow. At the bottom was a consent form. All they needed was my signature. I swear I could hear Victoria's voice whispering behind that ink. It's for her own good. Bullshit. It wasn't about my safety. It was about convenience. Control. Getting me out of the way so they could finish whatever plan they were cooking. Probably selling the house behind my back. Cleaning up the mess so it looked like I just disappeared. They had no idea I read legalese better than most lawyers. Do you know what the fine print said? That signing over meant relinquishing power of attorney. That they'd have control over my accounts. My assets. My will. My goddamn will. They weren't just tossing me aside. They were reaching into my grave with greedy hands, looking to loot the body before it was even cold. I didn't cry. I didn't scream. I just sat there. Stone still. Tea untouched. Pulse steady. And that's when the old version of me, the one they thought had died with my husband, stirred. You want war, Victoria? You want to play power games, Andrew? You forgot who raised you. I tucked the letter under the sugar tin. The same sugar tin where I used to hide my son's candy from ants when he was 10. Poetic, isn't it? I sat back in my chair, looked around my quiet kitchen, and whispered to myself. This was your last mistake. Because they underestimated what happens when you give an old woman nothing to lose. I didn't need time to think. I already knew what I had to do. They'd drawn first blood, and now it was my turn. I pulled out my phone, the one Andrew always made fun of because it wasn't smart. Good. That meant it couldn't be traced easily. I called an old friend, Sandra. We hadn't spoken in 5 years since her daughter's divorce scandal. But when she picked up and heard my voice, she said, "What did they do to you?" I told her everything. The hospital, the letter, the fridge, the plan. She was quiet for a second, then just said, "I'll bring the binder." Now you may not know this, but women of a certain age, we don't knit for fun. We do it to keep our hands from wrapping around someone's throat. And we don't gossip to pass time. We do it to collect intel. Sandra had dirt. Not just on Victoria, but on her side of the family. Her business dealings. Her prior marriage. Her cosmetic surgery she claimed was medically necessary. Everything. And she kept it all. Laminated. Categorized. Like I said, we're not fragile. We're archives of truth wrapped in wool sweaters. That night, I pulled out my will. The real one. The one Andrew didn't know about. And as I stared at it, untouched since my husband passed, I realized it was time. Not just to change it, but to weaponize it. Let them think they're getting everything. Let them feel comfortable. Safe. Let them keep posting their brunch photos and their matching sweater selfies while I sharpen the blade. I'm not going to raise my voice. I'm going to raise hell. I didn't cry in that hospital bed. Not because I wasn't hurt. Hell, I was bleeding in more ways than one. But I'd learned a long time ago. Tears don't buy you loyalty, and weakness only invites vultures. So I laid there, under those damn flickering fluorescent lights, with machines beeping like a countdown to my own insignificance, and I started plotting. They thought they left an old woman to rot. They thought I was too broken, too fragile to matter anymore. But what they didn't know, what they never bothered to ask, was that I'd survived worse than an empty hospital room. My mind may move slower, but it moves deeper now. And every beep of that monitor felt like a metronome for something much darker inside me ticking to life. I started with silence. Let them think I was beaten. Let them carry on with their lives, with their Instagram dinners and fake smiles. I didn't even send a message when I got discharged. I had a cab take me home. Alone. And I was glad no one was there. Because the moment I stepped into my house, my empty, echoing house, I let out a scream so guttural it shook the goddamn walls. Plates shattered. A photo of me and my son, back when he used to call me Mama, like he meant it, cracked right down the middle. Good. Let it break. Let everything break. Because from that point on I was building something else. It started small. Quiet things. I began writing again, something I hadn't done in years. I pulled out old journals, receipts, letters. I made lists. Of names. Of favors. Of what they owed me, not just in money but in blood. In dignity. In time. And then I dug deeper. I opened that locked chest in the attic. The one with my old nursing license. The one with my wartime journals from volunteering overseas. The one with my father's court documents, where I learned how to manipulate a power of attorney long before my son ever knew how to tie his shoes. They forgot what I was made of. They forgot who raised them, who protected them, who lied for them when they couldn't pay taxes, or snuck their drunk asses into bed after wrecking their father's car. And now, they wanted to erase me like a smudge on the family photo? Let them. I made a call to Miriam first. My old neighbor. The one they always laughed at for being the nosy cat lady. Miriam had tabs on everyone. Within an hour, she told me that my daughter-in-law was hosting a charity brunch next weekend. Something about single moms and mimosas. Cute. And just like that, I started sewing. Not metaphorically. I mean actual sewing. There's something meditative about it. But it's also sharp, focus work. And every time the needle pricked my finger, I imagined it was a tiny echo of the pain they gave me. Stitch by stitch, I put together a package. Not for them. Oh no, not yet. For someone else entirely. Someone I knew would whisper exactly the right words in the right ears. But I wasn't ready for my first strike yet. Not until I had my proof. So I went digging. And baby, let me tell you something. When you raise a child, you see the breadcrumbs of who they are. You know where they hide things. My son? He was always sloppy with passwords. And his wife? Let's just say she wasn't shy about her email when she visited. It took me 3 tries to get into their shared Dropbox. What I found? Let's just say Thanksgiving dinner wasn't the only thing they'd been leaving me out of. There were documents, real estate transfers, hidden bank accounts. They were selling my old property. The one I let them manage until I got back on my feet. Bastards never expected me to walk again. Well, surprise. Not only was I walking straight into the bank with a notary. Now listen carefully because this is where most people get messy. Revenge isn't about yelling. It's not about throwing hands or making a scene. It's about precision. It's about showing up where they least expect, with a smile on your face and a pen in your hand. So I went to my lawyer. Old man Dorsey retired now, but still owed me 3 favors from the time I helped his daughter with that addiction mess. I brought tea and pound cake and slid him a list of my demands. I changed my will. I changed my power of attorney. I redirected every policy, every deed, every single trace of financial control. And I didn't just remove my family. I replaced them. But I'm getting ahead of myself. Let me pause right here for just a moment to say something to you, the one listening to my story right now. You've come this far. You're hearing the truth they tried to bury. If you want more stories like this, stories they don't dare tell in the open, go ahead and subscribe to the channel. Not for me, for yourself. Because sometimes the only thing standing between justice and silence is someone willing to listen. All right. Where were we? Ah yes, my first strike. The first blow wasn't loud. It was a whisper in the wrong room. A single envelope. Hand-delivered. No return address. Inside? A printed email chain. Between my daughter-in-law and her silent partner in that shady property deal. You know, the one they tried to offload my childhood home for a cash flip. Claimed the deed had been misplaced. I laughed so hard reading it I nearly choked on my tea. That envelope went straight to the homeowner's board of ethics. And another copy? It found its way to Channel 8's local news desk. I didn't sign it. Just stamped the corner with a lipstick kiss. Let them wonder who sent it. By the time the brunch rolled around, they were smiling through clenched teeth. I watched the news segment with my feet up, a glass of bourbon in hand. You should have seen her face when the camera panned to the documents. The anchor actually used the words, alleged financial misconduct. So polite. So lethal. Of course, they didn't know I was behind it. Not yet. That's the best part of this whole game. They still thought I was bitter and broken, stewing in my house with nothing to do but feed my birds. Sweet little grandma. What they didn't see was the fire I'd been building under their floorboards. I started talking to old friends, real friends, not the flaky ones who only sent Christmas cards. People I hadn't called in years. A former court clerk. A pastor's wife. Even a nurse from back in my ER days who now worked at a private investigation firm. I didn't need much. Just a few facts. A couple of signatures. A well-timed nudge here, a notarized note there. Meanwhile, I kept showing up to family functions. Yes, I did. I showed up to birthdays, to barbecues, to baby showers with my potato salad in hand. I let them hug me, pose for photos, slap on those guilty smiles like I couldn't smell the betrayal on their breath. Because I needed them comfortable. I needed them confident. Arrogance is the softest flesh you can pierce. My granddaughter, oh bless her teenage heart, she left her laptop open during one visit. I accidentally clicked into her iMessages and saw a conversation with her brother. Gran is acting weird lately. Think she knows. I smirked so hard it hurt. No, baby. I don't think. I know everything. And I know exactly when to make the next move. I waited for my daughter-in-law's charity gala. Big event. Lots of cameras. They were desperate to clean up their image after the misconduct piece aired. I donated anonymously. $5,000. Straight from my hidden reserve. I put it under an alias I used back in '78 when I helped house runaways during the Detroit riots. And in the donation comments? From a woman you left to die in silence. They read it aloud during the event, thinking it was poetic. Meaningful. Only she knew. Her hand shook on that champagne flute. Her mascara started to run. That was the moment I saw the cracks. The moment I knew she remembered the hospital. She remembered that I'd asked her to bring my pills. That she said she would and never showed up. She remembered I called her when I was too weak to reach the nurse button. And that voicemail I left her? She deleted it. Or thought she did. What she forgot is that iPhones auto-upload to the cloud if you set the settings right. And she never changed the login I gave her when I helped her set it up 5 years ago. She never changed the damn password. So yes, I had the recording. Of me in that bed begging. Gasping. Saying please. I burned it into a CD. Labeled it, Gala Highlights. Mailed it to her boss. Don't worry, I didn't go for blood. Not yet. Just let the boss know what kind of family values their PR rep truly stood on. She resigned within the week. They still didn't know it was me. And I wasn't done. Because you see, while they were spiraling, canceling appointments, scrubbing social media, whispering into phones, I was putting the finishing touches on my true masterpiece. Not revenge. A rebalancing. But that's for the next part. Because I haven't even started yet. And that's how it all started to shift, not overnight, no, but piece by burning piece, like a house catching fire from the inside out. Let me take you to the final stretch, where I turned their perfect little world upside down with nothing more than a rusted lockbox, a pen that hadn't run out of ink, and a memory sharp enough to cut glass. By the time November rolled around, I was done playing nice. You remember that visit I told you about? The one where they finally showed their faces after the hospital? Where Janice brought me store-brand soup like I should be grateful. Yeah, that visit was my last rehearsal. I sat there in my chair like a sweet old woman with too many blankets and not enough teeth, just nodding along as she babbled about estate planning and streamlining the process. Honey, I wasn't just listening. I was counting. Counting how many times she looked around my house like she already owned it. Counting how long it took for her to mention the word will. Counting every smug smile Derek shot my way, like he thought I was 2 pills away from losing it. They thought they'd outlived me already. They were practically vultures waiting on the roof, licking their chops. I waited until they left. Then I went to work. First stop, the basement. Now let me tell you something about basements. Most people keep junk in theirs. I kept power. I kept truth. I kept the goddamn receipts. 12 boxes. Labeled in my old handwriting. From the days before Janice even got her nose job. Photos. Letters. Tax returns. And one box sealed in duct tape and locked with a rusted padlock, labeled in bold marker, "Do not open until after my death." Guess what? That one never made it to the attic. Inside were recordings, journals, and copies of documents that would have made Derek's career crumble and Janice's social circle flip on her like wolves. See, what they never knew, what nobody knew, was that back in my younger days I wasn't just a school nurse. I handled records. Medical records. And back then, when I wasn't patching up knees or calming panic attacks, I saw everything. And I kept copies of the things they begged me to forget. Including a certain private practice run by a certain financial advisor my son had been embezzling from. Oh yeah. And Janice's little wellness nonprofit? Not so nonprofit after all. I spent 2 nights sorting through everything. I only stopped to sleep when my hands started shaking too much to hold a pen. I didn't feel tired. I felt alive. Every page, every photo, every voice memo, it was like my veins were singing. And the final touch? I took a trip to town. Wore my best gray cardigan, the one with the pearl buttons they gave me for Christmas that year they forgot my birthday. Walked into the notary's office with a smile and a folder full of thunder. Rewrote the will. Clean and legal. Watertight. Left them exactly what they deserved. Now here's where it all starts clicking into place. I scheduled a family dinner. Said I wanted to see everyone before the holidays. Told them I had something to share. A few last words just in case, I said with a wheeze in my voice and a sad smile. Oh, they lapped it up like gravy. Thought it was going to be some maudlin speech about legacy and love and forgiveness. They all showed up. Janice in pearls. Derek in his smug little blazer. Even the twins pretending they didn't know why they were there. The dining table was set with my finest china. Turkey, mashed potatoes, the whole spread, but cold. Purposefully cold. I didn't lift a single finger to warm it. Just like they left me cold in that hospital bed. And right before anyone took a bite, I tapped my fork against my glass and said, "Before we eat, let me play you something." Their faces dropped when I pulled out the tape recorder. And what came out of that speaker? Oh honey, that was music. The first tape was Janice back in 2015, bragging on a drunken phone call about how a few creative donations helped her dodge IRS flags. I'd recorded it after she accidentally butt-dialed me. Kept it ever since. For a rainy day. Then came Derek. His voice clear as day, talking about how he funneled money from a trust into his investment experiments, otherwise known as gambling. And just when their cheeks turned pale and the twins started shifting uncomfortably in their seats, I laid down the papers. Copies of bank statements, emails, legal consultations, all neat, all dated, all signed. Then I smiled. And I said, I thought I'd bring receipts to dinner. You left me starving in that hospital. So now let's feast. You could have heard a pin drop. Janice stared at those papers like they were going to grow teeth and bite her. Derek's jaw clenched so tight I thought he'd snap a molar. The twins, well, they tried to play dumb. But even they started leaning away from their parents, inch by inch, like rats deserting a ship. I stood up, slow, deliberate, every bone in my spine tall like a goddamn monument, and I said, "You all left me to rot while you schemed and smiled and divvied me up like land. But the thing you never understood was this. You were never dealing with a broken old woman. You were dealing with a loaded gun in a floral nightgown." Then I pulled out the envelope. Red wax seal. Thick, expensive paper. The new will. I held it up like a holy relic. This is the only document that matters now. Witnessed. Notarized. Legal as sin. You're not getting the house. Not the money. Not the land. You're getting exactly what you gave me. Silence, abandonment, and regret. And I turned to Olivia, my old neighbor's daughter, who'd been helping me with errands for months, who held my hand after the surgery, who cried when she found me unconscious. I said, "Olivia, dear, would you mind calling that nice lawyer? I think we're ready." Oh, you should have seen Janice's face. She started screeching. Derek tried to grab the documents, but I had already mailed certified copies to the estate office, my lawyer, and, oh yes, a few select journalists. Just for fun. They tried to argue, of course. We're family. You can't just erase us. You're senile. I leaned across the table, looked Janice dead in the eyes, and said, "No, darling. I'm just finally sane enough to see you for what you really are." They stormed out one by one. First the twins, shame curling their shoulders. Then Derek, muttering something about lawsuits. Janice was the last to leave, dragging her ego behind her like a torn coat. I stood there alone at the cold dinner table, a battlefield of mashed potatoes and broken pride. And you know what? I felt warm. Warmer than I ever did in that godforsaken hospital bed. That night, I lit a candle, sat in my reading chair, and listened to Billie Holiday on vinyl. I didn't cry. I didn't cackle. I just breathed, a slow, deep breath that felt like the first one I'd taken in years. Now let me be real with you. Revenge doesn't always come with fireworks or handcuffs. Sometimes it's quieter, more surgical, and sometimes it tastes like dry turkey and long overdue justice. But it comes. Oh, it comes. And before we finish, if you've made it this far into my story, into the trenches of betrayal and the fire of my fight, then listen, child. I've got something to ask of you. If you want to hear more of what they never thought I'd tell, more secrets, more truths, more stories they tried to bury me with, then hit that subscribe button. Stick with me. This old lady's not done yet. Now where were we? The aftermath. Because revenge, darling, it leaves a mark. Not just on them, on me too. In the weeks after that dinner, the neighborhood buzzed like a kicked beehive. Olivia started coming by more, not just for errands but for coffee and stories. My old friends, the ones I thought had forgotten me, started calling again. Turns out they hadn't abandoned me. My family just kept them away, told them I didn't want visitors. Liars, the lot of them. I started reclaiming things. Photos they'd stuffed in boxes. My wedding ring, which Derek tried to pawn years ago but I'd hidden away. I repainted the porch. Donated half my china to a shelter. And that red velvet box? The one I said I'd only open when I felt alive again? It held a brooch. My mother's. A small thing, cheap to anyone else, but it caught the light just right. I pinned it to my sweater and wore it to town. Stood tall when people stared. Let them see me not as a relic, but as a storm that survived. And now you've heard it. Not the whole of me, but enough. They thought I'd die quietly. They thought I'd go down a whisper. But me? I went down a thunderclap. And if anyone asks what Grandma left them in the will, you can tell them this. She left them the truth. Sharp, unwrapped, and laced with fire. Now go on. Tell someone. Whisper it if you must, but tell it loud. Because I'm not just a story. I'm a warning. And I'm far from finished. They thought it was over. They thought walking out that door with their egos bruised and their wallets empty was the end of the story. A moment of humiliation, sure, but something they'd recover from. Something they'd spin at dinner parties like, "Oh, Mother was confused, you know how old people get." They didn't realize I'd just rewritten the ending. Because justice isn't just served, it echoes. It ripples through every damn room they used to own in my house, rattles every dusty shelf they left behind, lingers in every memory they tried to steal and twist into their own narrative. The weeks after the will were quiet, but not peaceful. No, there's a difference between silence and peace. Silence is what they left me in. Peace is what I fought for. And the first thing I did with that peace, I bought a rocking chair. Not for me, for the front porch. Because I wanted to sit out there every evening where the neighbors could see me, tall, wrapped in my best knit cardigan, sipping tea like a queen on her throne while they whispered. That's the woman who disinherited her whole family. That's right. Let them talk. Because for once I controlled the narrative. I took walks down to the cafe again. Olivia, sweet girl, joined me more often than not. We'd sip bitter coffee, laugh about the local gossip, and occasionally dip into conversations about trust, betrayal, and what it means to be truly loved. One day she asked me, "Don't you feel sad about it all? About them?" I looked at her, really looked at her, into those big eyes that still believed people could be better, and I said, "I'm not sad that I lost them. I'm sad that I ever thought I had them." See, grief isn't just for death. Sometimes you grieve the living, the version of your daughter you thought would care, the son you thought would step up, the family you imagined sitting by your hospital bed holding your hand. But when I grieved that illusion, when I finally let it burn, I made room for something else. Truth. And truth, darling, it's the hottest fire of all. It wasn't just emotional justice. I took action. Donated to charities they mocked. Funded scholarships in my late husband's name. Set up a medical support fund for elderly women who get dumped in hospital wards like forgotten luggage. Because no woman should ever have to lie in a sterile bed, staring at the ceiling, wondering if the people she raised will show up before she dies. And if they don't, she should have a way to rise without them. I made sure of that. And then, because I'm nothing if not poetic, I hosted a dinner. A second Thanksgiving. A real one. Not with blood, no. With chosen family. Olivia brought her fiancé. My neighbor Marie brought her 3 grandkids. Even the postman, bless his heart, stopped by for pie. And there we were, all of us packed around a table where only ghosts used to sit, laughing, eating, toasting with sparkling cider and bourbon, telling stories that didn't require a damn filter. Halfway through dessert, I tapped my glass. They went quiet. And I said, "This is the family I earned, not the one I birthed." Some cried. I didn't. I'd cried enough in that hospital, hooked to machines that beeped louder than their apologies. Now I was done crying. I was building. Later that night I walked up the stairs alone. No help. No oxygen tank. Just my cane and my spine still straight. And in the hallway right before I reached my room, I passed the guest room. It was empty. Clean sheets. Fresh paint. A little lamp that cast a golden glow across the floor. It used to be Janice's childhood room. Now it was open. For anyone who actually needed it. That's the difference between revenge and restoration. Revenge burns it down. Restoration builds something better on the ashes. I did both. And every so often I hear things through the grapevine. Derek filed for bankruptcy. Something about a bad investment and a worse divorce. Janice tried to guilt-trip Olivia into talking some sense into me. Olivia laughed and blocked her number. The twins? Still floating. Still trying to sell some online startup about vintage golf socks. They still haven't visited. Not once. But you know what? That's a gift too. Because peace, real peace, is when you don't miss what hurt you. And if they ever show up again teary-eyed and full of apologies, I'll invite them in. I'll make tea. I'll listen. But I won't change the will. Because that paper, those words inked with clarity, bound in law and love, that's my shield. My sword. My story, finally written by me for me. Let that be a lesson. If they bury you, dig out. If they forget you, remind them. If they write you off, write a better ending. And when they leave you in the hospital alone, don't beg. Plan. Rise. Strike. Now, before I go, before I wrap this up and let you carry my fire into your own life, I'll ask again. If my story meant something to you. If you felt your own bones rattle with recognition, your own voice scream through mine, your own fists clench when I was left to rot, then don't just sit there. Subscribe. Let's make sure no one silences women like me ever again. And if they try, we'll burn brighter. Together. Final thought? I'm not the villain of this story. I'm the author. And if you remember one thing, just one line from this whole goddamn saga, let it be this. They left me to die in silence. I answered with thunder. So now you've heard it. The whole damn thing. Not the version they'll tell at parties, the watered-down half-truth. We did our best fairy tale. No. You heard it from the only voice that mattered. Mine. I didn't just survive them, I outwrote them. I turned their abandonment into ammunition. Their silence into scripture. Their greed into gasoline. And I lit the whole house with it. Some will call it revenge. Let them. Let them clutch their pearls and whisper, she went too far. Because they never saw the tears in the hospital. They never counted the pills I almost swallowed. They weren't there when the monitor beeped slower and slower while my body gave up and my heart screamed, where the hell are they? But you were. You listened. You stayed. And now you carry this flame too. So do something with it. Love louder. Stand taller. Protect the elders in your life before they become memories. And if you are the elder, don't you ever go quiet. You are not disposable. You are not a burden. You are not forgotten. You are the storm they didn't see coming. If you made it this far, if you felt even a fraction of this rage, this ache, this triumph, then hit that subscribe button. Let this channel be the lighthouse for every soul ever left in the dark. Because this story, it wasn't just mine. It's all of ours. And we're not done yet. Not by a long shot.